Welcome back, everyone. I'm Errol Barnett as we both look live at the White House this morning where the sun is rising. President Trump at this moment touting his ceasefire with Iran as a big day for world peace, and he's just sent another message on his Truth Social account. And this is where we begin our top stories this Wednesday. Just ahead of his 8 p.m. deadline last night, President Trump announced the U.S. and Iran have agreed to a 2-week ceasefire, and as part of that deal, Tehran must reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Peace talks mediated by Pakistan will begin Friday. Israel says it supports the U.S.-Iran ceasefire. However, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claims the deal does not cover military action in Lebanon. That contradicts information released by Pakistan's Prime Minister. Fighting between Israel and Hezbollah continued this morning. And in a statement shared by President Trump, Iran's foreign minister confirmed the ceasefire, saying Iran's armed forces will coordinate safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz, quote, with due consideration of technical limitations. And oil prices dropped below $100 a barrel after the news of a deal. However, you're looking at gas prices now, which are up again this morning. The national average, $4.16 per gallon. That's up 2 cents from yesterday. Experts say it could take months for these prices to return to pre-war levels. We've got team coverage on all of this for you this morning. Ramy and Inocencio is tackling the global response to the ceasefire. But let's begin with CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes. Nancy, good morning. I know the president just sent a fresh new message. Update us on the latest.
Well, Errol, all 3 countries have now signed off on this ceasefire. That's the U.S., Iran, and Israel. A 2-week ceasefire that was brokered with the help of Pakistani officials. Now, Iran has also agreed to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. For now, the president says that the U.S. will help to deal with the traffic that has built up in the strait. The president made an over-the-top threat just before his deadline yesterday that caused some serious alarm amidst lawmakers here in Washington, D.C.
After nearly 40 days of all-out war, the military strikes in Iran have stopped. President Trump agreeing last night to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks, saying a long-term peace plan is very far along. Traveling in Hungary, Vice President J.D. Vance called it a fragile truce.
You have people who clearly want to come to the negotiating table and work with us to find a good deal. And then you have people who are lying about even the fragile truce that we've already struck.
The truce came just an hour and a half before Trump's 8 p.m. Eastern deadline for a deal, at which point he had vowed to begin targeting civilian infrastructure.
They're going to have no bridges. They're going to have no power plants.
As part of the ceasefire, Iran's foreign minister announced last night for a period of 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces. For the past 6 weeks, hundreds of oil tankers have been unable to enter the strait, sending oil and gas prices soaring worldwide. Yesterday, some Iranians formed human chains around power plants as Trump's threats intensified. At one point, he warned a whole civilization will die tonight, prompting more than 70 congressional Democrats to call for his impeachment or his removal via the 25th Amendment.
Threatening to eliminate a civilization is comparable to genocide. That's illegal, immoral.
Some Republicans also criticized Trump's language. Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska posted on X that it directly endangers Americans, both abroad and at home. Even the Pope weighed in on Trump's threats without using Trump's name.
Attacks on civilian infrastructure is against international law, but that it is also a sign of the hatred, the division, the destruction that the human being is capable of.
With a ceasefire in place, now comes the hard part, a longer-term deal. And Errol, you mentioned President Trump's new message out this morning. It has to do with Iran's nuclear program. He is saying that the U.S. is going to help dig up enriched uranium that might be underground, dig up and remove all of the deeply buried nuclear dust. He insists there will be no enrichment of uranium going forward in Iran. But all of that, of course, is going to be up for negotiation over the next 2 weeks. These are the kinds of negotiations with Iran that often take months, if not years. And so the question is how much they can accomplish in the next 2 weeks. And if they don't, does that mean the war will resume?
Yeah, we expect to hear more from the Pentagon at the top of this hour at 8 a.m., Nancy, so we'll see if there's more details on what the president is saying. Thank you very much. Let's jump now to CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio in our London newsroom. Ramy, good morning. What reaction are we seeing to this 2-week ceasefire announcement and the new information coming from the White House?
Sure. Well, both President Trump and Iran are saying it was their side that got the upper hand in this ceasefire deal. But for Iran's neighbors, that does not appear to matter at all, because reaction absolutely has been one of relief after the past, 6 weeks of war now. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Egypt, Oman, and Qatar all welcoming this ceasefire. They thanked Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif for helping to make this happen. And they are saying all parties need to stick to peace, and they need also to open up the Strait of Hormuz. The office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also said that it supports the deal. But with Israel, we're seeing that it's actually not supportive across the whole entire country. In fact, opposition leaders are angry because they see this deal as a pause, as a chance for Iran to potentially regroup and to figure out those next steps, potentially after these 2 weeks are up. The opposition leader Yair Lapid actually called it a disaster and said that Israel wasn't involved in discussions. Another sticking point I want to get to, staying with Israel, is that Netanyahu said the ceasefire does not include Lebanon, but Pakistan's premier said it did. And that being said, Israel's military today, actually just in the past few minutes, released a statement, the idea of saying that it just launched the largest coordinated strike across Lebanon, targeting more than 100 Hezbollah command centers as well as military sites. So we see that carrying on despite what Pakistan's premier has said. As for reaction out of Europe, there is some as well. France's Emmanuel Macron posted on X that about 15 countries are working to help restart that traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. And we also got word that British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is in the Gulf right now and through Friday. You remember we were reporting last week that he held a summit of about 40 countries, again with the goal of getting ships through Hormuz again. So as for making the ceasefire deal official, Pakistan has invited delegations from the U.S. and Iran to Islamabad this Friday. So we'll see what happens in 2 days from now.
And Ramy, what do we expect may be next for the Strait of Hormuz and the global price of oil?
Right. Well, we don't know exactly the mechanism to get ships through the strait. We understand that at least from one research site that 2 ships have gotten through, but truth will be over the next hours and days. But international reaction we're seeing is in the price of oil, not just in the words that people are saying. The price of global oil, this is benchmark Brent, dropped like a rock. Look at that on the right-hand side of your screen, as much as 17% in reaction to that ceasefire announcement overnight. This is a graph over the past 5-6 trading days, and Brent now trading in the $94 range. But yesterday it closed at $109 a barrel, and today we're seeing this now at the lowest since it's been since March 11th. So again, we'll see if this continues to hold. But to put that in perspective, it was $70 a barrel before this whole entire war still started.
Right, and it can change quickly. Ramy, thanks so much.